Chinatown has arrived on 4K as part of the Paramount Presents line, and I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about Chinatown and to talk about what this movie means, what this movie represents. But of course, we're also going to talk about the 4K restoration, how it looks on 4K. I will tell you, there is no Blu-ray of Chinatown in this release. There is a 4K of Chinatown and a Blu-ray of The Two Jakes, which was the sequel, the second part of what we had hoped would be a trilogy, but that never panned out. Chinatown is, without hyperbole, one of the 100 greatest American films. I truly believe. This is a representative of not just the neo-noir style, but also of Hollywood in the early to mid 70s as the window was closing on a certain kind of movie. We all know that the studio system had started to collapse in the latter part of the 50s. Throughout the 60s, you're seeing more and more pushback against convention. You're seeing more realistic cinema. And of course, by the late 60s, by the early 70s, we're getting things like we had never had before at the movies. And Chinatown is one of those films that's just powerful and realistic and uncomfortable. It's all sorts of things in this one really marvelous package. When we talk about Chinatown, I want to be careful that I don't set expectations too high. That's always the thing when you cover a film that is so classic, like a Casablanca or, you know, a Wizard of Oz or something. These movies that have reached icon status. If you're coming to them fresh, you're probably not going to have an immediate love reaction. You know, it takes time to live with these things, to absorb them, and to see how other movies bounced off of this, how this influenced a whole genre. Chinatown is the story of Los Angeles. It's the story of water. It's the story of power. It's the story of a private investigator who is looking into what's going on beneath the surface, and as he starts to uncover it, he begins to realize that there's really no way to win. There are really no good guys, and I think maybe that's as far as I want to go with like talking about the plot of the movie. Jack Nicholson is great. Faye Dunaway is great. It's a really adult film in the sense of mature themes, complicated emotions, really gray, you know, gray. Like there are no answers for anything. There's no happy endings in real life. There's just maybe you win today, but do you win you may win a battle, do you win the war? Chinatown is brilliant. And one of the things that I have an appreciation for, I love the movie so much more than I did. You know, when I was younger and I first came to it, I was like, okay, I understand this is an important movie, but why? And then this book really turned me into a super fan. This book is amazing. This is The Big Goodbye, Chinatown and the Last Years of Hollywood by Sam Wasson, who is all over the special features on this Chinatown 4K. Chinatown is the premise of this book is that Chinatown was the last film of Hollywood. It was the last film that the Hollywood that supported and made that kind of movie would ever make. And that after that is the coming of Spielberg and Jaws and George Lucas and Star Wars, and then Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then Alien, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark. And before you know it, we're in the 80s and everything is a blockbuster, and it's Back to the Future this, and it's Rocky IV this. That Chinatown was the end of an era. And he makes such a powerful thesis for this that there's really no arguing with it. I mean, the last few pages of this book haunt me because I can see it. I say, oh, we had this existed, and it is gone, and I don't think it's ever coming back. Nicholson, it's interesting to put, like, let's put this in the context of Nicholson's career. 1974, it's just 5 years after Easy Rider. The early, like 73, 74, when this movie's being written and made and shot, we're talking about still that it's that young, rebellious, new independent style of Hollywood where creators are pushing against the conventions. They're seeing what they can get away with. They want a more realistic style of cinema. And it had a moment. It really had a moment. And I think that Chinatown reflects that. When you watch this movie, you look at the shot compositions, you look at the way they shoot up towards certain buildings, the use of color, the use of whites in the film, and the use of yellows in the film. It is a remarkably constructed masterpiece that I don't think the Two Jakes, the sequel, did not recapture the magic of the first Chinatown. It's good. I'm so glad it's here. But Chinatown is this really, it's lightning in a bottle. You can't capture lightning in a bottle a second time. And so here we have Chinatown on 4K. And I'm so excited. Now listen, this is not a new transfer. It is a new transfer, but it's been on digital. I bought this when it hit digital, well before this 4K was a thing. And so I have seen this movie on 4K before. Now you're going to say, okay, well with streaming or with digital, right, there's compression and there's, yes, all that. So this is my first time watching that 4K transfer in a native 4K presentation from the disc. And it looks good. Here's the thing about me doing 4K reviews now is I know so much now that I realize how much I don't know. There are 100 different ways to make a 4K transfer. You can take out all the grain. You can tone down the grain. You can mess with the colors and you can make it warmer. You can make it colder. You can make it brighter. You can make it darker. There's so many different things. There are a million different knobs that you can tweak with a 4K transfer when you're making something like this. My perspective is I want something that looks filmic first, and I want something that I believe reflects the filmmaker's original intentions. So not something that's going to be super revisionist. Here's the thing about this. The special features here. Now Chinatown is on a disc. Again, there is no Blu-ray. We have our digital code here. The Chinatown is on a 4K, and the Two Jakes is on a Blu-ray. Now, the 4K has all of these special features. I mean, hours of special features on it. So they have loaded up that 4K disc. I see no signs of compression. But what I was going to say is that on these special features on the disc, they range, they've carried over just about everything that has previously existed. They've got stuff from 2007. They've got stuff from 2009. They've got brand new special features with the writer of this book. What you realize is that none of these transfers look the same. And that's the thing. When we talk about a 4K or a 4K restoration or a 4K disc, I know there's these channels that go like, it's a screenshot comparison. That means nothing. That's worthless. Because that implies that there's some sort of a truth, or that there's some sort of a pure thing, that there's some sort of a control group that marks, the pure thing. But we don't have that. This movie has looked different for just about every presentation that it's had, including this one. So it's been, past transfers of Chinatown have been very, very warm, trending toward yellows and oranges and things like that. This doesn't have that. This is more of a neutral color palette, which I like. I don't like those super saturated lifesavers colors when it comes to transfers. It's a fairly neutral color palette. HDR looks great. I mean, the colors really pop, but I'm just saying it's not pushed in a particular direction. It has film grain, but it's very fine film grain. What I now know about film grain is that they can just take it out and they can go, well, let's add a little bit back in. Okay, let's add 25% back in. Let's do 28%. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what is real here anymore. I do know that I like the way that it looks. I do love film grain, and I kind of wish there was a little bit more. But it doesn't look like it's been DNR'd to death or anything like that. And I also say this knowing full well that there are going to be dozens of YouTube channels that are holding this up in the thumbnail, and it's like DNR or whatever to get your clicks. So what's the point, really? That's kind of where I think that it's a very pleasing transfer. I think, here's the thing. It's by far the best home media presentation Chinatown has ever had. And that's enough. Shouldn't that be enough? When there's so much outrage or so much debate over, most people don't care. Most people just want to watch Chinatown. And they want to say, does it look better than what I have already? And it always will. Because 4Ks always are at least some step up from a DVD or a Blu-ray, and this is the new de facto definitive presentation of Chinatown. Let's talk about the special features that we've got here. We've got a state of mind, author Sam Wasson on Chinatown. He talks about, it's so funny because he's like, well, one thing, Chinatown represents, Hollywood, and it represents this great thing of filmmaking. On the other hand, it's a nightmare. And that's kind of what his book is about, is like the nightmare of Chinatown and like all the stuff that went into Chinatown. And once you know the story, you're like, oh, Chinatown is like, it's like a fulcrum point for the industry, for Hollywood, for filmmaking, for the actors involved in it. One of the things he talks about in the book is that Nicholson's fee after Chinatown, there was a communal spirit in Hollywood among the young actors at that time. After Chinatown, superstar Jack Nicholson, he was unapproachable. People could not afford him, and that sense of community was gone. It's almost like what happened after, and here this ties in, it's almost like what happened after the murder of Sharon Tate by the Manson family. And of course, she was married to Roman Polanski. Roman Polanski is the director of Chinatown. There's Polanski on this disc as well. Archival, if you know about Polanski, we don't need to get into it. He's a very controversial figure. One of the things that I love about the author of this book is that I heard him in a radio interview, and the interviewer said, so Roman Polanski, the director of Chinatown, monster, predator, or gifted genius director. I'm paraphrasing. And he said, well, he's both. It's not one or the other. It's both. People are complicated. It's both of those things at the same time. Multiple things are true. So it's interesting to me that we have this snapshot now of this disc with all this myriad of special features that cover decades of Chinatown home video releases. So there's that new feature. There's a commentary by Robert Towne with David Fincher. That's not new. That's the feature with Sam Wasson is I believe the only new feature here. But there's so much stuff here. Chinatown Memories. The trilogy that never was, Water and Power, because the movie is about water and power. And The Two Jakes, which we haven't really talked about, is about oil. And the third movie in the trilogy was going to be about the air. It was the 1940s, 1950s, and it was going to be 1960s, spanning these decades in the history of Los Angeles, and it just didn't happen because Chinatown was lightning in a bottle. And you can make The Two Jakes, and I'm so glad we have it, because it's kind of a movie. The Two Jakes is a movie that has flown under the radar for a lot of people. I mean, people may know about it. I think maybe it's in there with like Prizzi's Honor or something. Like, people know it's in Jack Nicholson's oeuvre or whatever, but they don't necessarily connect it to being as immediate and as powerful as Chinatown. It's interesting though, because it's the same character, and it's the evolution of that character as well. So we've got Water and Power, as I say, Chinatown and Appreciation. By the way, I say hours of special features. The Water and Power feature is like an hour and 17 minutes. And multiple features here are about 30 minutes. Some of them are about 10 minutes, but they range in spectrum. I mean, it's really like 3 to 4 hours, and that's not counting the commentary of just video features. Now, they're not in 4K, to my knowledge. The new State of Mind might actually be in 4K, but most of these features, if you're worried about disc compression and like, well, how are they cramming all that stuff onto one disc? Standard definition stuff, there's a mix of standard definition and a mix of some HD stuff here. I don't think it's taking up that much room. Chinatown and Appreciation, Chinatown the Beginning and the End, Chinatown Filming, and Chinatown the Legacy. So over these special features, you've got, seriously, a couple of decades worth of Chinatown featurettes and talking head segments, and an interview with, multiple interviews with Polanski. And Nicholson's not here, but do we expect Nicholson to be here? And so all, like, the takeaway for this, because I don't want to just sit here and ramble and talk endlessly about this film, but the takeaway is that this is an incredible version of Chinatown. And anybody that makes some definitive statement about the video quality or about, all the, I don't know, this is just the world we live in with 4Ks now, is that anytime we talk about a 4K restoration, they're always controversial, because controversy gets clicks. I don't think that's how most people work. I think most people just want to know, is it better? Is it a step up from what I've already got? And the answer is yes. It's a definitive yes. I love the packaging for this. Paramount Presents always does these fold-out sort of O cards with the preserving the original poster artwork, because this is the iconic artwork and it's the artwork I'm going to be using for my video as well. Chinatown is a masterpiece of cinema, not just because of what it accomplishes on the screen and that mature adult storytelling about the formation of Hollywood and the aqueducts and like bringing water into the deserts, but also because of the time that the movie was made in, the behind the scenes story of Chinatown and what it represents in film as a 130-year thing, right? This tapestry of cinema that's been going on for 130 years or so. Chinatown is this really important moment in cinema history. And I'm grateful to Paramount Presents for giving us this release. A lot of Paramount Presents films do not have this kind of this bounty of special features. You usually get something new that's like 15 minutes. You might get a new commentary. Hours of special features here. And in a time where so many of the distributors, so many of the studios are leaving off Blu-rays that had the legacy features, Paramount did not do that. Now, yes, they're on the 4K, which I'm okay with as long as it's not crowding the disc, and like we've talked about, it's not. I'm so grateful that the story of these movies is living on. It's great to have the movie. That's the most important thing, to have the movie in the best presentation possible. But the story of the movie, the record of the movie, is almost as important. And that's been carried over, and I'm tremendously grateful. Chinatown gets a recommendation for me. It's probably going to be on one of my best of the year lists. And again, not because it's like eye-meltingly awesome. It looks very good. But because it's an important film that has been given an important treatment. I will put a link in the description of this episode where you can pick up Chinatown. That will support Serial at Midnight. Obviously, it lets Paramount know, yes, more of this, please. So thanks to you guys. But if anyone from Paramount sees this, which is possible, thank you guys for preserving the classics and for preserving the story of the classics. That's important to me, and I know to a lot of people in this fan community. So thanks. And guys, let's continue the conversation about Chinatown. I'd love to know what you guys think about the movie, so let's continue it in the comments below. Subscribe, thumbs up. Until next time, I will catch you later.